Well, while we're talking about the elections, let's go to line 3 here. Say good morning to Chuck from Muncie. Chuck, you're on the air with Congressman with Congressman Mike Pence.
Good morning, Congressman.
Hey, good morning, Chuck.
We appreciate all the hard work you're doing.
Thank you. It's a privilege
here
to serve
in
you.
Land.
Thank you.
My question is that if the Republicans do win a lot of elections, which I think they're going to, what's going to be different this year as far as when we were talking about abortion? Because there's a lot of your supporters that really want to see that ball pushed forward, but when we have the presidency in both chambers of the House, we didn't get anything done on that. So is there a plan that we're going to do something different this time?
Well, absolutely. Well, first, I think, first and foremost is to recognize that at the very center of Obamacare, Chuck, was a change in American policy that I think it's become clear to most Americans that under Obamacare we provide public funding for abortion in this country for the first time since Roe versus Wade. And so the two-track effort, number one, I believe House Republicans are going to fight to repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel. But we're also going to push for legislation that will impose the Hyde Amendment restrictions on abortion funding across federal spending. We'll do both of those things at the same time. Reinstituting the Mexico City policy to make sure our foreign aid isn't used to subsidize abortion. Using the power of the purse to make sure that the federal budget reflects the values of the American people is mission critical. So I think in all of those ways, you're going to see, if Republicans are given the opportunity to lead Congress again, you're going to see a pro-life agenda on Capitol Hill. And interestingly, it'll be a bipartisan pro-life agenda because there are more than a few pro-life Democrats who I believe will stand with Republicans in those efforts.
There's been a lot of talk about repealing health care, and it looks like, looking at the polls, and I understand how you feel about the polls, but looking at the polls right now, you would take the House if those elections were held today. Senate would be 50-50, and you still have Barack Obama as president. So, I mean, how do you can't lock, stock, and barrel repeal health care reform, I don't think, but how would you do it? Just step-by-step dismantling, attempt to do it that way, or what's the plan?
Well, look, I mean, in ordinary times, I think your political conclusion might be right, Charles. These are not ordinary times. I mean, the reality is you've got the Democrat candidate for the U.S. Senate out in West Virginia, Governor Manchin, who just announced that he's for full repeal of Obamacare. You know, if we do what we need to do on a race-by-race basis, and we get conservatives like Marlin Stutzman and Jackie Walorski and Todd Young elected here in Indiana, and we send a whole new generation of conservatives to Washington, D.C., I don't know how public opinion might shift if they thought we actually could, if we had the votes in the House and the Senate, to repeal Obamacare. Right now, more than whatever poll you want to believe, you know, more than 55-60% of Americans support repeal. I saw a survey the other day at CNN. 1 in 4 Democrats in this country want to repeal Obamacare. Imagine, if you will, that Congress actually was able to pass a bill out of the House and Senate for full repeal. Imagine where public opinion would go at that point. So I think you're going to learn by doing. Bringing forward efforts for full repeal has to be job one. But on a dual track, we also will use the power of the purse to deny any funding for the implementation of Obamacare. So at minimum, we would have the ability to take their government takeover of health care to a national referendum in the next presidential election.
It is remarkable how the American public they're learning that when they do stand up and they do en masse say something, people do actually listen to them. I mean, that's kind of what I see happening here, and that's what you're pointing to, is that if you just get a little momentum and the public gets behind it, then things could happen.
It's just occurred to me lately that the numbers, and again, I don't memorize poll numbers, but the numbers are rather striking. They've actually stayed, for full repeal or opposition to Obamacare, has stayed the same since that third Sunday in March. In fact, it's grown a little bit. And that's in an environment where there are liberal Democrat majorities in the House and the Senate. You know, imagine, if you will, that if Republicans were given the opportunity to lead the House and Senate, were able to pass a repeal bill, where would public opinion go at that point? And even if the president got out his veto pen to protect his government takeover of health care, we do have this thing called veto override, which, again, is a very tall hill under the Constitution of the United States. But too often in the public debate, we leave the American people out of the conversation.
Right.
And I think if there's one unambiguous message hurtling toward Washington, D.C. 3 weeks from today, is that the American people don't want the government takeover of health care. They want to scrap it and start over with the kind of health care reform that actually will lower the cost of health insurance without growing the size of government.